Well, today's the day. What's up, guys? So before we get started, I feel like I at least owe you guys a bit of an update. As you can see, I do not have any wheels and tires on here, and that's because I ended up putting them up for sale last week and someone came and bought them. So it looks like I just got jacked, but that's fine because here's what we got now. So as you guys should have seen in the last video where I did the 1-inch wheelbase stretch in the front, you probably realized I mentioned that I was going from 33s to 35s. And as you can see, I ended up selling the 33s and ended up getting these new 35s. I wasn't really sure what tire I wanted to go with at first, so I spent a lot of time doing a lot of research, and I really knew that I wanted to do something that was a little bit different than what everyone else did. And I ended up coming across the Armstrong Desert Dog MT, and this was really cool because it's actually a big throwback tire. It was a very popular tire back in the day, and even before my time, and they brought it back and with a whole new modern design. But as far as the wheels go, I have to give a huge shout out to Hartes Metal. They were kind enough to send me out 5 of their Hartes Metal monster wheels. I ended up going for the bronze with the black beadlock. Well, beadlock I should say. They are the simulated beadlock wheel. And I am going with a 17 by 8.5 with a -6 offset. So before I move on to getting these things mounted up, let's take a look at these really quick. So first things first, I wanted to kind of walk through this tread design a little bit. It's definitely a unique design. You don't see it on too many tires. At first glance, it definitely does have some similarities to the Milestar I did have on here. You can see that it has a center pattern with a symmetrical outer pattern, just like the Milestar had. But in this case, the tread blocks are a lot farther spaced out than they were in the Milestars. So that should greatly improve the mud performance. And the tread depth as well was also increased from 19 to 21 30-seconds, which is a lot more typical for your modern mud terrain tire. Another detail I really wanted to point out, all these jagged edges they put on these tread blocks are designed to help eject rocks from getting lodged in there. And I just really love the detail they put into this design. The company logo that Armstrong is a rhino, and you can see incorporated in their tread design they have these little horns or tusks built in there. I just really like seeing companies do unique things like that in their tires. Then moving on to the sidewall. From the pictures, I wasn't so sure about the sidewall. I didn't think it looked too aggressive, and I really like to have a tire that has very aggressive side biters. But now that I've actually received the tire and I'm really looking at it, and as you can see in this video, it's actually a very aggressive sidewall, and I think it's going to perform very well in the rocks and in the mud. And it will provide all the protection it needs when you're aired down and that sidewall is really making contact on the ground. But then moving on from the tires, I really want to go into some details on these wheels because they're a very unique design as well. So like I said, these are the Hartes Metal monster wheels in a 17 by 8.5, obviously the 5x5 volt pattern, and a -6 offset. I went with the bronze finish, and I think it's really going to pop with the red. I'm really excited to get them on there and see how it's going to look. I should also mention that these wheels do have the center caps, and you guys will see those once I get the wheels bolted on. And as you can see, just by first glance, these are wheels that you definitely do not see very often, and I think they're really going to make the Jeep pop. I also do want to mention that it does have this beadlock ring, but that is a simulated beadlock. These are not true beadlocks. I would love to go to a true beadlock, but I just cannot justify the cost of them right now. I don't think I really have a need for them yet, but in the future, definitely going to be something I move on to. But for right now, I think these really give it that beadlock look that everybody likes without going too overkill on the price. Alright, well, now that I've shown you guys an up close look at the wheels and tires, let's get these things put on there. Alright guys, as you can see, it is a new day. It is no longer dark out. It got too dark last night for the camera, so I decided to pack up and get back to it today. So last night we ended up getting all 4 of the wheels and tires put on. Last thing we did, we got all the center caps put on, as you can see here. Now normally what I would do is I just give the lug nuts some ooga doogas with the impact, but I think with the fresh wheels, we're just going to actually go through and torque them down this time, just to be safe. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so now that we got that done, the next thing I want to do is go through and cycle the suspension. Since we just went up in tire size, I really want to see how everything clears, make sure I can go to full torque, and all the suspension flexes just fine without giving me any issues with rubbing. And if you watched the last video, you saw where I did the front stretch. So I really think we're going to be good up here, but to be safe, I still really want to go through and just cycle all the suspension, turn the wheels back and forth, make sure we're not going to have any potential interference here. But the main problem that I'm thinking is in the back. Right at this rear bumper, I'm still running the factory bumper on here that has not been trimmed at all. And you can already see the paint has been scraped off right here, and that's just for my 33s. So I think going up to the 35s, it's actually going to be a bit of an issue, so I think I'm just going to have to trim some of that. So we're just going to go ahead and cycle the suspension and make sure we're not going to have any problems, or if we do, let's take care of that now. So this isn't quite full bump, but what it's looking like to me is we should be able to get full use out of these 35s without having to cut the fenders at all. We're almost at full bump, just a few inches short, but I think going up any higher isn't really going to show me anything different. So here's the closest part that we'll be at. And as you can see, we still have a decent amount of clearance. We shouldn't have any rubbing whatsoever. I've already turned the wheel around. So it's looking like that 1 inch stretch ended up being worth it, and it gave us all the clearance we needed to get full use out of these 35s without having to cut my fenders at all. But now that we figured out that the front's going to be good, let's go ahead and take a look at the back and see what we got going on there. so at first glance with the jack, I didn't notice any rubbing that we were having yet, but the problem I'm having here is there's not any point that I'm able to get the jack to where I can fully stuff one of the rear tires. I've tried it in several different places, and there's just either not enough travel in the jack, or it's not really distributing the weight in the right way. So I think the only option I really have left is I'm going to have to drive the front onto something and really let the weight rock onto the back and push it in that way. And I'll just have to like slowly creep up onto some bank, and then I'll have to walk around and see what I actually have. But what I did go ahead and do, I went ahead and I removed this inner fender liner just to take a look at the evap stuff that's back here, because this is my main concern. I have no problem trimming the plastic bumper cover at all, and I don't think we're gonna have too much of an issue with the actual body itself, but if we do, we can maybe massage that a little bit. But the evap is what I'm most worried about. I think I may end up having to relocate that, so that is why I want to get a tire fully stuffed in and really make sure where it's gonna rub, if it's going to rub, and then how much it does. Because if we have a lot of rubbing, I'm probably going to have to relocate the entire evap, which isn't a huge deal, but it's just another step I'm going to have to take. But if it's only minor rubbing, I may be able to get away with just simply modifying this bracket just to tuck it back a little bit and make it follow the contour of the wheel well a little bit better. So I think the next thing we're going to have to do is start this thing up and go drive it up onto a bank. But as you can see, it is already starting to get dark again. It is almost fall time and the sun has already set. It is not even 8 o'clock yet. So I'm not sure how well the camera is going to be able to pick up any of the footage. So we may have to wait until tomorrow and actually try and do this and get it on video. So for now, I think we might just leave it, and then we'll get it all figured out tomorrow and see what I have to do.
A few moments later.
Okay, so as you can see, it's still the same day. A lot darker out now even yet. I got a little antsy. Didn't really want to wait till tomorrow. I decided that if I'm going to do stuff tomorrow, I'd rather just be able to do the work rather than do all the testing. I want to have everything figured out tonight and then know what I have to do for tomorrow. So probably hear the Jeep running in the background, and here's what I end up doing. Probably way too dark. You can see the front. I actually flexed it out all the way to where the spring has now unseated. And at least we know that the front clears perfect. Obviously this is not the right side to show you that, but on the other side there is indeed no rubbing. But now the back, where we were thinking we had problems, first off, we'll take a look at in front on the wheel well. It's actually like perfect clearance, no rubbing whatsoever. Probably have about 3/4 of an inch there. And if you look back there at the shock, if you can maybe see that, we are no more than an inch away from full bump, and clearly we are making full contact on the bumper cover, which was expected. But on the bracket for the evap, it is actually very minimal contact. I'm trying to get the light in there to where we can see it, but it looks like we might be able to get away without removing or relocating the entire thing. I think we can just modify that bracket slightly, just enough to give us a little bit more tire clearance, and we should be good to go.
The next day.
Alright guys, it is finally the next day, but I just got home from work and the sun is already starting to set, so gotta try and be quick today. So today, or if you remember last night, we ended up doing a quick flex test to check the clearances, and I found where I'm going to have to make a little bit more clearance in the back. So today, really quick, we're going to try and trim up that rear bumper a little bit, and then we're going to have to grind a little bit of metal off from that bracket that is holding the evap on the back. So let's get on with that. I know I just went through the hassle of getting all the wheels torqued down, but I figured I'd make it easier on myself and just pull this one off. Remember guys, safety third. so here's what I ended up doing, guys. I ended up grinding off that lip that went around the perimeter to give it structure, and got rid of all of that. That allowed me to be able to bend this out of the way. So I'm hoping with just that edge curled in, it'll give me enough clearance. I don't think we have to worry about it too much in the back here, but I think we're gonna have to mount the tire back on and go do another flex test and then check for clearance. If everything's good, then we can go ahead and finish up with the rest and add some paint to this as well.
Don't block the camera. Oh.
Alright guys, we're up on the bank again, parked up. Spring is completely unseated this time. And today we are at full bump. Can't go any farther. And looks like we actually have perfect clearance everywhere. No rubbing on the bumper whatsoever. And it's going to be really hard to see it from here, but maybe from underneath. Not sure if you're able to see that, but the bending I did is actually completely perfect. So I think we might check the other side just to be sure, but I think we're gonna be all good. Again, looks like we have another perfect fit. Alright guys, so there we have it. We have the 35s mounted up with no rubbing whatsoever. So I think what we gotta do in the next video, put these things to the test.